Hello and welcome to another Standard video. Today we're going to attempt to fix what's broken in Standard in this white, blue and black or esper colored reanimator deck, running this 4 mana sorcery from Strixhaven. As an additional cost to cast it, we need to pay X life, and the magic number is 5 in this deck, returning each artifact and creature card with mana value 5 from our graveyard to the battlefield. And every creature outside of the Prankster has mana value 5 in this deck, including Terror of the Peaks, which is the real win condition that we're hoping to get into the graveyard, bring back alongside a bunch more creatures, so we can immediately deal a ton of damage to our opponent, often winning the game on the spot. So then we'll need ways to discard the Terror if it's stuck in our hand, since we cannot cast it, no red mana in the mana base. One way to do so is with a Wistfulness, which we get to evoke for double blue, drawing 2 cards and discarding, also adding the Wistfulness itself to the graveyard as another 6-powered creature that gets to deal 6 damage for every Terror of the Peaks if we bring them back. And then we also have the Picklock Prankster, which gets to mill 4 cards, putting an instant, sorcery, or a fairy from among them into our hand. So if we mill a Fix What's Broken with a Prankster, we also get to put it into our hand, and then there's a few more cards we can hit. And then we could also maybe discard a Terror using the Overlord of the Flood Pits, which we can impend for 1 and double blue, drawing 2 and discarding a card, or maybe a Winter Night Stories, which gets to draw 3 and then discard 2 unless we discard a creature card, although often we're interested in discarding 2 creatures anyways, which we're still allowed to, so we can maybe put multiple Terrors or other big creatures into the graveyard to set up our turn 4 reanimation spell. Can also harmonize the Stories out of the graveyard, which can happen later in the game. And then we also have the Black Overlord, milling 4, can put a non-avatar creature from our graveyard back into our hand, so often looking for Pranksters and Wistfulness. And then we also have the Harvester of Misery, giving us some cheap interaction. For 1 and a black, we can discard it to give a creature -2/-2 until end of turn, as opposed to maybe casting the Harvester or bringing it back, in which case all other creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn instead, so it can be another effective sweeper. Do have to be careful if we bring back Harvester alongside Terror of the Peaks, that we first resolve the Terror of the Peaks triggers and then shrink down our team, otherwise we would lose out on a lot of damage. And then at 4 mana, besides Fix What's Broken, we're also running the full set of Day of Judgment, because we're not guaranteed to have Fix What's Broken in hand by turn 4 to cast it, so then sometimes we'll have to buy ourselves enough time to get to that point, and then a sweeper like Day of Judgment is perfect, since we're not really committing any creatures to the board ourselves. And unlike the Kivero Reanimator decks that use Bringer of the Last Gift to not only wipe the board but also get their creatures back, here we're okay with our opponent having a bunch of creatures in their graveyard, since they're not going to get them back if we fix what's broken, so that's one of the advantages of getting to play a sweeper in our Reanimator deck, since we don't care about the opponent's graveyard. And then the mana base has 26 lands total. I really don't want to miss land drops in this deck. I also need double blue early for Wistfulness, and then have enough black for Overlord and Harvester, while now also supporting double white for Day of Judgment. So we do have pretty stringent mana requirements, but we can make it work thanks to all the Surveil lands early on, Meticulous Archive and Undercity Sewers, which we're happy to play tapped on turn 1 to improve our draw steps, maybe fill the graveyard some more. Have the blue shock lands as well, and then we get to round it out with the Verge lands, which now also synergize nicely with the shocks and surveils, since they have both basic land types, so the Verge lands can reliably make both colors. So no room for any basic lands. Could also experiment with Starting Town or Multiversal Passage, but hopefully this will work out just fine. So yeah, let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play. We have a functional hand where get to Surveil on 1, turn 2 we have either Interaction or Overlord can be impended, and then Stories to try and fix what's broken. And Day of Judgment I'm gonna keep, in case our opponent's on a creature deck. So for now, impend Overlord. And grab a Wistfulness. Opponent's Sultai Colors, still with a Banter Mole Cub. So Day of Judgment could be effective. Terror of the Peaks we're happy to discard. So could still, of course, use a Harvester on the Cub, but since we have Day of Judgment, I'm less in a hurry. Maybe still go for Winter Night Stories here. Discarding Terror. And I could also discard something else, just to fill the graveyard up some more. So I guess we have to decline and then select 2 creatures. We have double Day of Judgment. And then Wistfulness can keep drawing towards Fix What's Broken. Opponent taps out for Ouroboros. And this is why we put Day of Judgment in the deck. Do have to keep an eye on our life total, want to stay above 5, so we can still fix what's broken for 5. Another cub. So at the very least we could Wistfulness and use Harvester on the cub. Starting with a Harvester in case they're holding Quandrix's Charm, which can counter our spell if we're not careful. And then the Sanctum will only make 1 mana going forward. Opponent flashes in a Drowner. Do I feel the need to use another Harvester? Or do I Wistfulness? I mean, we do have a Day of Judgment coming up, so I think we keep drawing for now. Okay, and then maybe 1 tapped land can go. Could make it Fountain over a Surveil land, since I'm going to play 1 now. And maybe next turn I can just cast a Harvester and play another tapped Surveil land. Can also look into harmonizing Winter Night Stories. Alright, so if our opponent does have a Quandrix's Charm up, I guess I can just play the land first and then Day of Judgment. And then pass with Prankster available. Overlord's now a creature. So I also wanted to use a Day of Judgment before that happens. They do have another Drowner, however. They might decide to shuffle the Overlord back instead of letting me keep it. So then I don't feel the need to Harvester right away. Opponent's going to apply Geometry, so now we get to punish them with a Harvester. Main phase Prankster. Still nothing. Alright, so they're keeping us waiting. Could have maybe surveilled first, but yeah, opponent's already going to scoop it up here. I'll take it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got some good interaction. A light on ways to fill the graveyard. But there's a lot of those in the deck, so I'm willing to try this. Start with a Surveil, so that helps. And Hallowed Fountain is not a priority. We're pretty likely to hit a 4th land by the time we need it. Opponent red-white, Wistfulness was a good pickup. So at the very least put a Terror of the Peaks into the graveyard. Opponent seems to be holding a burn spell. So then we're still digging for Fix What's Broken. But if our opponent's on aggro, we've got lots of ways to buy ourselves more time. Right, maybe more of a control deck here with Pursue the Past, discarding a Fire Magic, which is maybe what they were holding. So then it's not impossible for them to have some graveyard hate too. So maybe our hand is not actually going to line up all that well. Tablet of Discovery. And mills a Virtue of Courage. And they get to cast it. Another Terror the draw. Yeah, I guess we'll take it easy here. Opponent may not present any creatures for a while, so Day of Judgment and Harvester aren't doing much. Although we can of course just cast this for 5 to start applying a bit of pressure. Scrollsmith is next. That one I can take out with a Harvester. I think I still just wait to cast Harvester for 5 as opposed to paying 2 mana here. They hit another Pursue the Past. So their opponent might be playing the Arc of Hunger to combine with all their mill effects. And they're gonna erode their own creature just to get a land. Fair enough. So presumably they have other answers to the Harvester. They're gonna flash back or just cast the 2-mana Pursuit that they exiled last turn. So the plan is probably to set up my graveyard to kill our opponent in one hit with Terror of the Peaks triggers, because they will likely have some board wipes to clean up. Question is, do they have Graveyard Hate to go with it? Because if they don't, we have a lot of time to set up. Alright, let's get in for 5. Hesitant to play another Harvester, because then we're just begging to get swept. So I'll pass it back. Opponent untaps, not having spent their mana. And now Improvisation Capstone. Yeah, that one's scary. And they hit Arc of Hunger. So that can start draining us as cards leave the graveyard. Okay, Overlord, we can impend. Or we can also just cast it at this point. Probably wanted to leave double blue available in case we get back Wistfulness. Sure. But now I can just Harmonize instead. Alright, we found Fix What's Broken, so now the question, do I discard another Terror? There's already 3 in the graveyard, so that's more than enough. So let's just discard another Harvester instead. And then if they do have Graveyard Hate, at least with Terror in hand, I have the means to maybe build up my graveyard a second time. Could have also maybe discarded double Day of Judgment, which we're unlikely to need. But yeah, opponent kinda needs to deal with the board and deal with my graveyard. If they can't do both, they could be in trouble next turn. And this doesn't look like a deck playing counterspells, looks just red-white. Maybe splashing black with a Great Hall for something like Inevitable Defeat. Don't need the Verge. Now the Capstone happens. Helix and Day of Judgment, so board will get swept. And I'll take 3. So now can our opponent exile my graveyard? They're gonna start by milling. If they do have something like a lantern in the deck, they get a few looks to maybe draw into it. But yeah, this is kind of the weakness of some of these more controlling strategies. If they can't fight the graveyard, they could just die in one big turn. 4 mana remains, +1 from Tablet, or 2 for instants and sorceries. They still hadn't played a land. And another Capstone is gonna try its luck, hitting no witnesses, and another Tablet. So yeah, opponent seems dead here to fix what's broken. Untap, play land. And we've got plenty of creatures in the graveyard already, so I don't need to mill more. And then we want to make sure to stack the Harvester triggers at the bottom, so we don't shrink down our creatures when they're about to deal damage with Terror of the Peaks. Which is probably not going to make the difference here, but sometimes shrinking down your creatures means you're going to end up a little bit short. So always double check that you reorder those triggers. And there we go, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We've got a functional hand, I would say. Double Prankster has a good chance of finding Fix What's Broken, have some interaction, and if we find a second white source, Day of Judgment can buy us more time. Turn 1 Plains, and Sanctifier, so a life gain deck. Given that I don't have Fix What's Broken, I'm pretty happy drawing another Prankster, I think. since that'll not only fill the graveyard, but give us a good shot at finding the namesake card. Opponent warping Halia. And plays a Hawk. So next turn we can pass and either adventure the Prankster or maybe take out a smaller creature, especially those ones that can pick up +1 counters whenever they gain life. And we can easily dispatch. They don't know we're on the Reanimator just yet. Small chance they do have some graveyard hate, like maybe a Kutzil's Flanker. So Halia, I think we let slide, even though they get to draw a card off of it. And then go for Prankster. Now by gaining life, they also make it harder for Terror of the Peaks to win on the spot. Opponent actually thinking twice about attacking, but goes for it anyway. Alright, we milled Terror and found a Fix What's Broken. So that was ideal. So this turn, just want to keep my life total high. Yeah, I think we still go for a Prankster, since my graveyard's not quite full enough where Fix What's Broken is necessarily good enough. Now the Case is a good one, since that helps against sweepers. And the Sentry. Alright, at least they don't seem to have any graveyard hate. Still down to potentially wipe the board first, depending on what we mill here. Or we can use Terror of the Peaks as removal. This might be the Ninja Turtle. Yeah, a Leonardo. So, could use Harvester to take that out before it grows. But yeah, just getting back Terror and Overlords, even with an extra Harvester, is that good enough? I guess it's a pretty good starting point. As opposed to Day of Judgment first, opponent can sack the Case to get their stuff back. Honestly, that might be better. So then I'll fall to 9 life here after all the triggers resolve. I think that's still safe enough where I can maybe Day of Judgment and then fix on the following turn. Milled an extra Wistfulness. So let's Day of Judgment. And then we'll see how our opponent decides to rebuild. The downside of this play is that we're now maybe exposed to graveyard hate when we weren't before. Opponent will sack the Case and start replaying stuff. But the Terror can also just answer some of their creatures here. Halia into Sentry. Alright, so I think the plan is to first surveil. See what we mill. Another land. So, yeah, getting back 3 creatures, I get to answer both of the opponents, versus what I could also do is just use double Harvester here, or maybe Harvester the Sentry, plan to chump with a Prankster, and then Fix What's Broken the turn after. So then I guess I'm fine drawing an untapped land. Play Prankster. What's the worst case? If they have like double Sheltered by Ghosts, maybe? Then this gets to 5 power, removes the Prankster, and I won't be able to Fix What's Broken anymore. So there is a potential risk. But let's just try it anyway. So I will want to answer the Sentry before it attacks, and maybe puts a creature into play. Sanctifier is fine. Opponent wants to move to attackers. Try and answer the Sentry. And then I'm happy to trump Halia. So now we're also getting back a Harvester of Misery. Plus I'll have the mana to maybe discard another one, which can maybe answer Halia as well. Opponent runs out to bat. They know about Fix What's Broken, so it's not gonna come as a surprise. Right, opponent passes a turn, so they do not want to overextend knowing about Harvester. Alright, hoping there's no Kutzil's Flanker here at instant speed. So I can first discard the Harvester, then I would get 2 of them back. The only downside of bringing back double Harvester is that I also take out my own Terror of the Peaks, which is maybe something I want to avoid. So then let's start with Fix What's Broken, and then I can always use Harvester to finish off Halia afterwards. Even if we're not getting it back here. So then put the Harvester trigger at the very bottom. And these can go upstairs. And get back Harvester. And then we'll discard 1 to answer Halia. Okay, let's see if our opponent can come back. I doubt they have their own sweeper, but it would not be impossible. Just a Healer's Hawk. And there's a Shelter by Ghost now. That's fine. Can just use a Harvester to get it back. So the plan is I could attack first or just cast a Harvester before attacking. I mean, I doubt our opponent's blocking here, so... I'll go for Wistfulness. And then Harvester second main will clean things up. If I shock myself, I can deal another 6 with Wistfulness, but I'll just pass here. And our opponent scoops it up. Awesome. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. We've got double Day of Judgment, no Fix What's Broken, and no card draw to really find it, so... Gonna mulligan. This is much better. I think we just keep Fix What's Broken, ditch the Day of Judgment, since I want the lands. And then with double Wistfulness, we get a lot of looks to maybe find a Terror of the Peaks. If not, maybe getting back Wistfulness on turn 4 is good enough. Opponent on a Prowess deck with Stormchaser's Talent. So they will be pressuring our life total, so definitely don't have infinite time to set up my graveyard. And that's a bunch of land. So probably keep the Wistfulness as kind of a useful play I can make next turn. And then we can Surveil. But yeah, double Wistfulness by itself is probably not good enough. Opponent with Opt into Opt, growing the Otter token. And another Surveil land. So maybe I want to Surveil before I evoke. Another Wistfulness can go to the graveyard. Best case scenario, draw Terror of the Peaks and discard it. Another Fix What's Broken instead. So let go of Hallowed Fountain. And yeah, I guess triple Wistfulness. Might have to do it for us. At least our opponent's tapped out, so they will not have a counterspell. So then the main concern would be like a Slick Shot flying over. Now an Overlord is interesting. Could impend it, hoping to fill the graveyard some more. But I'm kind of liking the Wistfulness beatdown, and then I can use the Overlord to maybe find the Harvester to give us removal to a Slick Shot. So then I want to make sure to play the Black Source. So then next turn I can Overlord into maybe discarding a Harvester. And still Surveil. We are at 10, so definitely within burn range. Opponent plots the slick shot. They could also have a way to protect it, of course. So my best shot, I think, is still to impend the Overlord and hope to find something useful. And I did not. I guess I can give myself a redraw with the Winter Night Stories, making sure to leave black mana available. Because I don't think I'm surviving the attack from Slickshot next turn, so I absolutely have to find Harvester. And I found it. Discard Terror. Could also discard a second card if I'd like. But I don't see myself fixing what's broken a second time necessarily. Okay, so attack with one or both copies of Wistfulness. Want to make it so I can at least threaten lethal next turn. That's a lot more likely if I attack for 12 here. Alright, opponent does not know about the Harvester at least. So it might catch them off guard. But they could also have a hexproof trick and we're dead anyway. Burst Lightning Face. Could still die to the Otter token, of course. No blocks. Unbounce Wistfulness. So opponent is presenting lethal, so they don't have to make a move. So I do have to respond now. And we'll see if we're still dead. Okay, that worked. Fall to 5. Untap. And our opponent had an Eddie Merc Crab to tap down double Wistfulness. That's still very scary. And Harvester the draw. So at 5 life I cannot fix what's broken anymore. I can, however, cast the Harvester to take out the Otter token. Although that would still leave me dead to the Crab if they can bounce Harvester. So maybe, let's see. Yeah, I guess we do not have the mana to discard Harvester and cast Wistfulness. So yeah, I think casting Harvester is still my best play, but I'm not very confident that it's gonna win me the game here. So yeah, let's just cast this. Maybe start with a Surveil. And hope they don't have another way to deal with the Harvester. Yeah, one more life could have made a huge difference. So possible the attack with Wistfulness a couple turns ago wasn't worth it and I should have kept one back. Alright, opponent had another Crab, so a second blocker here would not have made the difference, but maybe if we had more than 5 life, we could have survived. So there's definitely some risk with paying a life as your reanimation spell as opposed to using Kivero and it not costing you anything. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got 2 lands, 1 Surveil, some draw discard. Missing Fix What's Broken, but we've got ways to hit land drops and ways to find the namesake card. So I'll give it a shot. And there we go, right on cue. So now I just need to keep hitting my land drops, so I'll prioritize Wistfulness over Prankster. Opponents in green-white. Found the lanes, and then Overlord can go. Paw Patch Recruit is fine. And another one. Okay, so we've got Fix What's Broken lined up. Now I could play the untapped land Winter Night Stories, hope to draw another untapped land, and then if I discard some more creatures, especially Terror of the Peaks, there's a chance I could already win next turn. I think I just play it safe, play a tapped land here. Day of Judgment would be a fine draw too. So then I can find it with a Prankster, cast it next turn, and give myself a bit more time to set up my graveyard. And a Wildwood Scourge, so more of a +1 counter deck. Alright, so we'll clean up their board. And we actually milled Terror and another Wistfulness, so are they just dead now? We've got 12 plus 5 is 17, so we would be 3 damage short. But it should leave me in an unsurmountable position. Whereas if I Day of Judgment, I can fill the graveyard some more to just win on the spot, but I also run the risk of graveyard hate, maybe messing things up. Yeah, this gotta be good enough. Could also technically answer some of their creatures, but I don't really see a reason to. Bones at 3. Leave the Terror in the graveyard, grab another Prankster. And a Practiced Offense, okay. Can go for lifelink potentially. Scourge of 4/4. And yeah, opponent says good game, and there we go. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have double Day of Judgment, double Winter Night Stories. No creatures, no fix what's broken, but ways to look for them, and then Day of Judgment to help out against aggro. So I think I actually keep this. Also still need a second white source, but we do get to start with a Surveil. So I'm pretty confident that we can smooth out our draw, and then ideally find some 2-mana play we can make, whether it's a Prankster or Wistfulness to start filling the graveyard. And Tower of the Peaks is definitely something we don't want to draw. Opponent on a Kona combo deck, it seems. Alright, can be one of our tougher matchups, since our opponent can just combo off on turn 4, and we don't really interact at instant speed. So this is a matchup where Day of Judgment is not particularly effective. Did get lucky to draw the Prankster. So there's a chance I can just win on turn 4 before the opponent gets a chance to combo off. And they even had a spare Kona in hand. Well, that's a good set of mills. So as long as I can draw into Fix What's Broken, there's a good chance I can win next turn already. Alright, discard Terror. So I'll need to top deck here. We've seen about a third of our deck already. But we could not get there. So now there's a chance I die next turn. Can just Winter Night Stories again. Of course our opponent could also be holding a counterspell here. And then decline, discard double Day of Judgment at this point. And play a Surveil land. Wistfulness is not ideal, since I cannot evoke it and then still fix what's broken after. So I assume we're dead here, but there's a small chance our opponent has Kona, but no Omniscience. They just had another tapped planet, and we drew Fix What's Broken. Our opponent didn't seem to have a counterspell last turn, so I don't have a reason to believe they drew into one. So yeah, let's see if this works. Alright, and that should be more than enough, especially if we put the Harvester trigger on the bottom, so we don't shrink down our creatures with Tower of the Peaks. And our opponent explodes, so yeah, they were maybe a turn off comboing us with Kona, but we were on the play, and we still managed to get their turn 5. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. We've got Fix What's Broken in our opener, missing white mana, but we've got 2 Surveils, Wistfulness can help draw, and Harvester offers a little bit of interaction. So I'm gonna keep on the lookout for white mana and untapped lands in general. Opponent with a Gran of blue-black. So not entirely sure what to make of this yet. Wistfulness can go to the graveyard. So then next turn we can maybe just answer Grain. Discards another copy. And an Iron Shield Elf. So this is a more dedicated discard deck. Interestingly enough, Harvester is a way to get around the Indestructible. So I think we are going to switch targets now. Question is whether or not I let them untap. I think I do. Maybe your opponent goes to cast a Monument to Endurance, and then I can take out Elf in response. I guess we'll go for it now. And Gran still gets to loot. Discarding a third copy. And Emmet is next. Alright, makes sense why they would want to discard. And they are playing red as well. We did find white mana for Fix What's Broken, so yeah, if I can resolve it next turn with another terror going to the graveyard, there's a chance we could already win. So only discard one here. It's the Winter Night Stories where we can potentially discard multiple creatures. I'll keep another copy on top, partly because I don't want to show them what our plan is, but also in case they have a counterspell, we'll have more tries at it. So their opponent's digging for their red mana. Cycles a shark. So right now I have 17 damage going to the opponent's face, so that would be lethal. Just make sure to put the Harvester trigger on the bottom. And these all go face. And there we go, awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have double Wistfulness, Winter Night Stories, so a lot of card draw, and a Day of Judgment. So I can keep. Start with a tapped Watery Grave. And then all the Verge lands are online. Turn 1 Chocobos, so a Landfall deck. So Day of Judgment should be effective. So I can Wistfulness into maybe another Wistfulness and tapped Archive on turn 3. Prankster I would prefer to keep. And then if I draw another untapped land, I can maybe Winter Night Stories, discarding a creature, and then set up turn 4 Day of Judgment. If I don't draw an untapped land, then I'll just go for Prankster, tapped Archive, and then Day of Judgment on 4. Okay, that's fine. And then I guess I can Surveil now and pass. Another Winter Night Stories, I'm probably not going to have time to cast. Can always harmonize it once we start casting our 5 mana creatures. And an Earthbender Ascension. So Day of Judgment wouldn't be all that devastating right now. But we'll see what the Prankster has to offer. Because, I mean, with a Chocobo at 4 power, if our opponent goes Harmonizer into a fetch land next turn, I could certainly be staring down lethal. And we do need at least 5 life to fix what's broken. Right now, going for Overlord and Wistfulness is not all that exciting, so let's Day of Judgment. Hoping I can set up my graveyard for another turn, and then fix what's broken the turn after. Opponent's got the Ice Still with the Fabled Passage. So lots of Ascension triggers. They're also running Planar Engineering. So can't feel too comfortable. Badger Mole hits the graveyard. So yeah, if our opponent has something like a Harmonizer next turn, I'm very likely dead. But going for Fix What's Broken is not going to change that fact. So what's my best sequence here? Probably Wistfulness, Evoke, try and hit another land drop maybe, and then I can still Prankster. Or maybe Winter Night Stories if that's better. At least by passing with mana up, we keep up appearances. Our opponent might think twice about going for it. Harvester could be relevant interaction, I suppose. So we'll just discard the blue Overlord now. Play this tapped and then pass with Harvester and Prankster available. Best case scenario, our opponent doesn't force me to use a Harvester. We get to Prankster, mill Terror of the Peaks, and then win with Fix What's Broken. But yeah, there's the Harmonizer. So we are just very dead now. Ascension plus I still with a fetch land. Surprised they didn't just sacrifice a fetch land first. Maybe playing around instant speed removal to an extent. So yeah, if I Harvester now, we shrink down its power before it gets doubled, but our opponent would just sack Fabled Passage in response. So I probably should have responded to the +1 counter. Alright, they actually let it resolve first. But I should still be dead since they can get power to 7 and then double it to 14. So yeah, just took us a little bit too long to set up Fix What's Broken. Opponent had the Ascension and I still with the fetch land. So then Harmonizer just ends the game on the spot like it usually does. GG's, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. We've got a functional hand. Hoping to mill lots of creatures with a Prankster. Already have our 4 mana sorceries in hand. And we can buy ourselves more time with the Day of Judgment if needed. Another Archive, I don't think is what we need. Turn 1 Cecil. And another Fix What's Broken, so can pass, plan to adventure the Prankster. Is our opponent mono-black or maybe blue-black? Vine Lasher, not a typical inclusion in most decks, so opponent's got a bit of a brew. So it could be mono-black, aggro. And another Vine Lasher, so Day of Judgment is looking good, but we're probably still gonna take quite the beating here. And we do need at least 5 life to cast Fix What's Broken for 5. Alright, opponent will know about it now. And Winter Night Stories, so could be convinced to just play a Prankster and a tap land. Just to set up Day of Judgment and to preserve my life total, so I don't need to shock myself twice. And then best case scenario, opponent plays another creature here. And Unholy Annex to start drawing. So I guess we'll soak up 2 damage. Since the plan is still Day of Judgment. And now I don't need to shock myself anymore. So Fix What's Broken, not looking great. Just gets back double Harvester, which I could have also gone for just to wipe the opponent's board. But I think we'll try and wait a little bit longer to try and set up a lethal fix instead. Second Annex, bonus down to 10. So it doesn't take much to drain them out if we can find a Terror of the Peaks here. So let's try and go for it. Oh, double Terror. So decline, discard both. Definitely should have left a blue untapped in case I drew Wistfulness. I could have still evoked it. But yeah, if our opponent does not have Graveyard Hate, even if they play a demon here, we should have more than enough. Opponent makes a demon token, so we get drained for 4, opponent up to 14. And let's fix standard. X equals 5. Make sure to put these on the bottom again. And these all go upstairs. Alright, easy peasy. And there we have it, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a reasonable hand. Start with a Surveil, turn to Wistfulness, turn 3 Winter Night Stories, all in an attempt to fill the graveyard for Fix What's Broken. So happy to put another Wistfulness in the graveyard. Opponent black-green. Could also pass with Prankster. Yeah, I'm not sure what to expect here. Let's pass. So Sultai Badgermole, so this is likely the Ouroboros deck. So we do have to watch out for Quandrix Charm, but that's about it. So this turn can go for another Wistfulness, so I can preserve my life total by not shocking in a land for Winter Night Stories. And these are all pretty good too, so maybe keep the Harvester in hand as interaction in case we go with a slightly different line. Discard the Overlord. So yeah, if our opponent taps out, Fix What's Broken should be game over here. If they keep up mana, then we can potentially pass a turn ourselves with Harvester. The opponent taps out for Ouroboros. So Day of Judgment would be a nice answer, but we may as well just win the game. And make sure to put the Harvester trigger at the bottom. Alright, sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a promising hand. We've got Fix What's Broken, Terror is looking for a way to discard it. And I'll keep another copy in case the first one gets countered or discarded. And they might actually have a turn 1 Duress. Vine Lasher instead. Okay, so now probably want to spend my mana on the Overlord. Maybe pick up a Wistfulness that I can evoke next turn. I'll take a Harvester. Can answer the Vine Lasher, play another Surveil land. But yeah, ideally find one of our 10 discard outlets between Wistfulness, the blue Overlords, and Winter Night Stories. Now a Timeline color, does that change the equation? Probably still taking out the Vine Lasher before they play a land. And Day of Judgment, I guess, is not beneficial to mill, so it's probably fine to draw. I mean, we could Fix What's Broken just for Overlord and Harvester when we have a backup, although never mind, Lord Skitter. So our opponent does have some main deck graveyard hate here. So then Day of Judgment is going to be the move. Alright, so in a way I'm maybe happy I didn't mill the Terror earlier. Corpses is going to apply a lot of pressure, so yeah, I may not have a lot of time here. Take 5, I'm going to need to pay 5 to Fix What's Broken, so it's not looking great. And that's another copy. So just get back a Harvester. I'll be at 4, so I won't be able to Fix What's Broken anymore. But it would answer the Skeleton, put a blocker into play, and then we're close to having an Overlord in play as well. I don't think we have any alternatives. The Terror is not getting cast. And yeah, same with the 2 copies of Fix What's Broken, so my hand is pretty much useless. And our opponent had an answer to the Harvester, with another Lord Skitter to follow up. So yeah, this is pretty brutal. Found a Prankster, can adventure and cast it, since I'm not doing anything else. And grab another Prankster. And we'll get to Overlord. So I'm not that on board, but it's pretty close here with Sanctuary also getting pumped by Corpses of the Lost. And they had another Shoot to Sheriff. Yeah, that's a shame. Normally spot removal is pretty weak against our deck, but when it's paired with early pressure and graveyard hate, it's gonna find its mark. So now we appear to be at 1 life if I chump Lord Skitter. But I don't see a way out. I guess hardcasting a Harvester would have been reasonable, but then we still die to Sanctuary plus Lord Skitter attacking. So yeah, our deck is certainly not immune to graveyard hate. So I guess we'll go out on our own terms. X equals 1, since you cannot pay more life than what you have. No buy now, pay later schemes on Arena. And there we go, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. We've got Fix What's Broken, the most important card, and then a bit of interaction. Still lacking a discard outlet for the Terror, so whether that's Wistfulness, the Blue Overlord, or Winter Night Stories would all be good draws. Prankster's not bad either. Facing what could be a Landfall deck. Innkeeper's Talent, so they've got some +1 counter synergy. Can pass with Harvester and Prankster available. Maybe shrink down a creature before it grows. Tyvar, alright, that one can turn indestructible. Survives -2/-2, so Prankster it is. Milled a bunch of creatures and found a Winter Night Stories, excellent. So, yeah, there's a good chance I can already win next turn. I'll decline, discard Terror, and between Harvester and Overlord, maybe go for Harvester. Overlord's maybe better to hardcast if our opponent does mess with our game plan somehow. Second, Innkeeper's Talents. Level up. So opponent seems pretty dead. I guess they're at 20, so they're not actually just dead here. But it still seems worth going for. We'll also put a bunch of blockers into play. And I could finish off Tyvar. Although never mind, it's got Ward 1 now. So yeah, I can finish off Tyvar, so everything goes face. And then the next turn we should be able to just attack for the win. Pollinator's not gonna make the difference. And our opponent knows that they're dead. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We've got our fix, so yeah, I'm gonna keep this one. Overlord into Overlord to start filling the graveyard. They're not quite as good as evoking a Wistfulness, since the impended permanent does not end up in the graveyard right away. But we should still be able to set up our graveyard nicely. So then our opponent hopefully not off to a very aggressive start, because if they can get us to 5 or less life, we cannot cast a fix in the first place. Turn 1 Elves is not what we wanted to see. Although now a Harvester can take it out, and I think we will go for that option. Next turn, impend the Blue Overlord. Opponent just with an Escape Tunnel on turn 2, so it is the Landfall deck. And another Harvester is good to have in the back pocket. Ideally, draw a Terror of the Peaks that we can discard. So, I don't think we're at a spot where I necessarily want to fix already. Although getting back double Harvester could be decent. So then the plan next turn might be to double 2, go for Wistfulness plus Overlord or Wistfulness Harvester. If they play like a Hydra, I can take it out at least. So then I think I discard the Overlord, keep the Wistfulness and the Harvester. They are on the white build, which in best of 3 gets access to Rest in Peace in the sideboard. Of course, don't expect it in best of 1. So I can start with Wistfulness and then see what we draw. Day of Judgment is good too, although I think I just Wistfulness again. We're not in immediate danger of dying here, and there's a terror. Alright, so next turn we can certainly present lethal. Don't expect to die here. Opponent does not have enough mana to really combo off with a Harmonizer. There's no I Still Explore in circulation. They do now have the Mossborn. Day of Judgment would still be a fine answer. But yeah, the fix looks pretty lethal to me. And a Chocobo. Alright, so we managed to get one up on the green-white Landfall deck. So yeah, we got to fix what's broken in Standard, although Standard is still very much in a broken state if you ask me. That being said, the deck is decent, but not quite on the same level as the Kevero Reanimator decks. It's just lacking the consistency of Formidable Speaker, tutoring up the namesake card and also functioning as a discard outlet. There's just no ways to tutor up sorceries as reliably as creatures in Standard, so that means that some games you just don't draw the Fix What's Broken or draw it too late and you don't have the life to spend on it, which is another drawback of the strategy compared to the Kevero decks. And against counter spells, we're also weaker since we can't easily use Cavern of Souls on turn 4 to win the game through counter spells. Here we specifically need something like a Mistrise Village, which then also slows us down by several turns, and the mana base also doesn't necessarily allow it since we do have a lot of pretty stringent color requirements. So all in all, not a deck I would recommend, but if you maybe happened to open a bunch of the rares in the deck and are maybe tired of the Kevero Reanimator decks, then this can be a fun alternative. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.